heard that, I was like, wait, are you serious? It's like disgusting. And like that's basically marketing runs everything. And if the game doesn't sell, marketing just goes, oh, well, obviously the development's fault, or the market, whatever. People don't like it. They never go, oh, we had a dumb idea. Or,
a lot of the time, when a game does poorly, their response will be, well, obviously no one wants a game in that genre, right? Instead of like, maybe we made that badly, or maybe it wasn't a popular franchise, like they didn't really want to see soccer moms fighting. Their response will almost always be like, well, we tried to make a fighting game, no one bought it, obviously no one wants fighting games. And to me that's really depressing, because if you can admit that the game that you made was maybe rushed or not well designed or whatever else, then you can improve upon that. And one of the nice things at indie game companies is there is no shortage of people willing to blame other people when something goes wrong. But for serious, like, we can turn to each other and go, you know what, we didn't really spend very much time on, we didn't put enough in story mode, or we didn't put enough in tutorials or whatever, and like admit that it was a problem and actually try to fix it, as opposed to being forced to not acknowledge that anything went wrong and say that the game was developed totally perfectly, and obviously no one wants games that are like this anymore.
And yeah, one big difference is that with a smaller team, everyone has a similar passion. They want to do it. Whereas in a big company, everyone just clocks in 9 to 5. They have like a toxic mentality. They just don't even care about the project. Whereas on a small team, everyone's really into it. They talk to each other about things like, programmers will talk to artists, and artists talk to programmers, going, oh, what if you do this, or what are you guys working on? And then there's like a real sense of collaboration going on. Whereas, just huge studios are just like, they don't even look at each other, they're just boxed in their own little rooms without knowing what's going on. And they don't care at all. It's just,
I think the cool thing about, like, if it's a small group and there's toxic people, is you can totally, like, ice them out easily, whereas the other one, you're, like, forced to, like, work with them. That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
That's
you guys want to check out the bad Skullgirls?
Yeah. Sorry, we totally didn't let you talk.
Ow. What's that?
We totally didn't let you talk.
Oh, no, that's cool. It's cool. You guys covered it.
This thing sucks.
There's no sound, but
that's fine.
They use
just imagine like cheesy.
Yeah,
just imagine like cheesy '90s pop.
Oh wait.
There's
no music. Put that there. Like no, like twisted turnways.
We actually ended up
putting that in story mode. Yeah.
Nice.
Dinky music.
This is extreme.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, look at that date.
Well, anyway, so that has basically nothing to do with what we wanted the game to be. We actually ended up using that hot 2D fighting thing in Peacock story mode because it was so awful. But so this is an example of like what will happen at a big studio is like they give the PR to the PR people, and it may have nothing to do with the vision that the team actually has for the game. And this ended up being a really good example of it, because all the rest of our PR was us. Like, we got to pick who made the videos. We picked someone that we knew from the fighting game community that also had video making experience, and like the stuff turned out to carry the flavor that we wanted it to carry, and we had lots of control over it, as opposed to just like, this is what your commercial looks like. And I guess the cohesiveness is really nice. Like, you can do anything at a smaller game company. There's nothing that's out of your control. Go nuts.
Anyone?
Derek?
I guess if you wanted.
Well, I was just going to say that, from a developer's standpoint, too, it's really nice that you can set your own schedule. I mean, I think the nice thing about being independent is really that you are independent. So, for example, like with Spelunky, we released it on XBLA, and the plan from the start was just to release on XBLA first. And now we're thinking about other platforms, but after the release, like Andy Hall, the lead programmer, and we decided to take a nice big break afterwards and just do other things, and we could. And yeah, I don't know. I think just being able to work the way you like is also just it's a big perk of being independent.
Yeah.
You don't have to do meetings if you don't want to. You don't have to do like a meeting every day if you don't want to. You don't have to do any meetings. I do a lot of my best thinking just like walking around, and I can just do that. I can just leave the house and just walk around and think about what I want to do next. And you make a lot of decisions very quickly. With Aquaria, we made some huge changes in the game, like the core ideas behind the game. We made these big changes pretty last minute, and we could do that because it was just the two of us. We could talk it over, and we could decide to do this thing, and we did. And one of the big changes that we made to the game was that initially the game was very much more like a JRPG. There were supposed to be towns with lots of characters and lots of dialogue and text boxes and all of that. And right before the IGF, the Independent Games Festival deadline for the game, we decided that this really wasn't working for us, and we wanted to focus more on the main character. Make it feel maybe a little more like Metroid, say, versus like a JRPG.
Right.
We decided to go with a voice actress so that there wouldn't be any text boxes cluttering things up and ruining the flow of the game. And these are decisions we made very quickly. There's very fast turnaround. And when you're independent, you really have to use these advantages that you have, because you have some disadvantages being such a small team with such small resources. But for me personally, the advantages totally outweigh the disadvantages. And if it ever got to the point where I wanted to make like some massive MMORPG, maybe I'd go find a big team to do it with. But in the meantime, the types of games I want to make are relatively focused and are totally, I think, in this day and age with the tools that we have now with the internet, it makes collaboration so easily. It makes it so easy to find the right people to work with you. If you find the right people, you can do a lot with a really small team. Especially because I think, I wouldn't even say these days, but I think you find these types of people more where they can do a lot more than just one thing. I think at a big company you get someone who's just 3D modeling all the trash in the game or something like that. You get the guy who models soda cans or something like that. And
great guy.
Which is fine. It's awesome to have specialists, but for on an indie team I've found that a lot of teams work with people that wear a lot of hats, can wear a lot of hats, and unlike a specialist, they may not be the best programmer in the world, but they'll totally make up for it by being good at other aspects of game creation, like art, design, all these different things that go into games. So I think these days it's you're seeing it, right, with all these games. It's with all these smaller teams being very successful. So it's very viable to make a small or make a great game with a small team with all the resources that you have now. And I think the advantages for me really outweigh the disadvantages of being small. You're very agile, and you can really make the most out of someone's talents on your team.
Going on the specialist versus someone who wears a lot of hats. I think it's also interesting that my job is just lead animator, but it also means that I'm dealing with all the contractors, and then towards the end of the project I was helping doing illustrations for the story mode, and then it came down to that we needed help writing the scripts. So then I was writing a little bit, it kind of forces you to work in ways you wouldn't expect, which is actually pretty awesome because you become more well-rounded and cool. So I think that's a lot more interesting because you're constantly pushing yourself, you're forcing yourself to think in new ways and tackle different problems instead of being the trash guy modeler.
I don't mean that as a diss, really, to the trash guy. I just want to make that clear. That guy's going to be the best there is at modeling, the trash that blows around in GTA or whatever. But I'm just saying, as an independent developer, you can leverage the other talents that person may have or whatever.
Really quickly. By the way, if this sounds depressing, like if us getting up here and saying, you know, at an indie developer you can actually do this stuff that you want to do, sounds depressing because it sounds like at a large company you can't. That's kind of the reality of it. Like, I was an animation programmer at Pandemic, which meant if I really wanted to work on vehicle physics, I can't, right? Because that's not the thing that I'm supposed to do. And the other thing that it leads to on larger teams is no one really has any perspective of what the whole game is, except for maybe the director, who's usually someone that doesn't play video games very much. So, like, I would be the animation programmer, and if there was some place that I had to go to test some animation and it wasn't fun to get there, I could mention it, but I couldn't do anything about it. On an indie game, you can be like, well, this sucks. I'm just going to go change it. And, I mean, it sounds like what it should be to me, as opposed to the other side of it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about that too. Let's see. I think definitely in indie development, you have this sort of method in which you can explore more things, and you're wearing a lot of hats, and that's true. I don't know that like the big studios is all doom and gloom. For some people, it's very fulfilling. They have their one thing they're good at, and they focus on that, and they just rock it, as we just said. But like. That might be good for some people. I wouldn't want to like dissuade anybody from working at a larger studio just because at a smaller studio you get more creative flexibility, because I think they both have pros and cons, and stability is one. Like we were talking about before, like they pay me in Otter Pops, that wasn't a joke. But like the thing is, I think at Way Forward it's kind of nice because it's a studio, it's kind of a medium-sized studio, and we strike a pretty good balance. Like I've never felt stifled or like I don't have a way to flex creativity there because we're just like a bunch of people making games and kind of doing what we want to do. I keep seeing this image right now. Yeah. For example, one of the titles that I directed was Mighty Milky Way on the DSiWare shop. It's a downloadable game, Nintendo DS, and that game was basically us just sort of dicking around. Like, it would be so funny if like at the end of the game spoilage crap. But like, okay, one of the examples, like in the tutorial, like you go through the tutorial, and as like a goof, we made the tutorial like really purposely like really long-winded and obnoxious. And like at a big studio, they'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Or no, or maybe they probably love that actually. Crap.
Press A to jump.
Yeah, no, but we did like this crazy long-winded tutorial that was like totally the opposite of like what we normally would believe in. Like we want to teach the player intuitively, have them learn by example, not just by telling them. So, but instead, we thought it'd be really funny if we just like had like all this text and you just have to like tap through it, and at the end, it asks you, like, would you like to view this tutorial again? And the only options are yes and very yes. And, like
both of them say no, right?
And both of them say you can view the tutorial again at any time by visiting the planetarium. But, like, it's, you can't, like, do that. Like, I know, like, Skullgirls team talks about, like, a lot of, like, goofy things that you guys got to sneak in. And, like, that's just, like, such a fun thing to do. And, like, for me, similarly, like the boss of Mighty Milky Way was just like a drawing that we a bunch of the guys were at lunch. Like literally, we were at Jack in the Box for lunch, and just like doodling crap. And like I don't remember who did it. Might have been like our creative director Matt Bozon, but he like drew this like cybernetic T-Rex that shoots laser beams and has like a bunch of crazy hands like coming out of the Jack in the Box. And, like, that'd be really funny if this was, like, the boss of the game. And, like, he is the boss of the game.